Ladies and gentlemen, there are few tragedies greater than the betrayal of a good soul. A soul that gives without condition, loves without hesitation, and trusts without fear. A soul that sees the world not through the lens of suspicion, but with the clarity of kindness. And yet, when such a soul is betrayed, the cost is far greater than what the betrayer imagines. Trust, once shattered, does not return in its original form. It remains fragmented, each piece a sharp reminder of what once was. The one who betrays may believe they have won, perhaps through deceit, through manipulation, or through an illusion of power. But in reality, they have lost something far more valuable than they could ever comprehend. Trust is not something handed out freely. It is a bond built over time, a foundation strengthened by actions, and a silent agreement between two souls that says, "I see you, I believe in you, and I will not harm you." It is an invisible yet powerful force that holds relationships together, whether in friendship, love, or even within the confines of simple human interaction. To be trusted by someone, especially a good soul, is not a privilege to be taken lightly. It is a sacred gift, one that should be honored, respected, and cherished. But when that trust is betrayed, it does not merely break, it shatters, and the pieces are rarely put back together the same way. A good soul trusts not out of naivety, but out of the purity of its heart. It sees the best in others, not because it is blind to darkness, but because it chooses to believe that goodness exists. It does not calculate risks or keep a ledger of doubts. It gives freely, without hesitation. That is what makes the betrayal of such trust all the more devastating. It is not just a deception, it is a violation of something pure, a disruption of an unspoken promise that should have remained intact. The aftermath of betrayal is a complex thing. To the one betrayed, the world suddenly feels colder, more uncertain. Questions arise. How could this happen? Was I wrong to trust? Should I close my heart to others? A wound opens, one that is not just about the act itself, but about the breaking of an ideal. The pain is not only in the loss of a relationship, but in the loss of something deeper, the belief that trust, once given, was safe in the hands of another. But if the pain of the betrayed is visible, the torment of the betrayer is silent, lingering beneath the surface where no one else can see. To betray a good soul is to carry the knowledge that one has taken something beautiful and tarnished it. There is no true peace in such an act. The mind may justify it, the lips may offer excuses, but the heart knows. The weight of betrayal is not always immediate, but it is inescapable. It shows itself in quiet moments, in sudden reflections, in the realization that no matter how much time passes, the act remains. It is a stain on one's character, a choice that defines who they have become. And here lies the greatest truth. Trust, once lost, may never return in its original form. One may seek forgiveness, may even be granted it, but trust is not a thing that can be fully restored once it has been broken. It is like a mirror, cracked, then mended, but never quite the same. The scars remain, the lessons stay, and the price of betraying a good soul is knowing that one had something rare, something precious, and let it slip away. Betrayal is not just an act, it is an impact, a wound inflicted not on the skin but on the soul. When someone places their trust in another, they do so with the expectation that their vulnerability will be respected, that their sincerity will not be used against them. But when betrayal occurs, it shatters that expectation, leaving behind wounds that do not heal easily. These wounds are not superficial. They embed themselves deep within, affecting the way a person sees the world, how they interact with others, and how they perceive their own worth. The consequences of betrayal are far-reaching, and no one involved remains unchained. For the one who is betrayed, the pain is immediate and profound. It is a feeling of being deceived, of having misplaced faith in someone who proved unworthy of it. The heart aches not just because of the action itself, but because of what it represents. The breaking of a bond that was meant to be strong. A person who has been betrayed does not simply suffer loss. They suffer disillusionment. They begin to question everything. Was I blind to the truth? Did I misjudge this person? Was I foolish to believe? This internal conflict can be more painful than the betrayal itself, because it shakes the very foundation of trust that one builds their life upon. The betrayed person may retreat into themselves, closing off their heart to others, hesitant to trust again. And who could blame them? After all, betrayal teaches a cruel lesson, that sometimes the people we believe in the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Some people recover from this with time, learning to trust again. But they are never quite the same. There is always a part of them that remains guarded, a small voice in the back of their mind that whispers, "Be careful this time." They become more cautious, more skeptical, and sometimes even the most open-hearted souls begin to build walls they once never imagined needing. Yet, if the betrayed suffer, the betrayer is not free from consequence either. While the pain of the betrayed is visible and immediate, the burden of the betrayer is something they must carry within. The one who betrays may believe, for a time, that they have succeeded, that they have gained something, perhaps power, control, or personal benefit. But the truth lingers. They know what they have done. They know they have broken something that cannot be easily repaired, and no matter how much they attempt to justify their actions, no matter how much they try to push the guilt away, the conscience is not so easily silenced. It will speak in moments of silence, in reflections, in the face of the one they have wronged. It will remind them that trust, once broken, is never the same again. They may seek forgiveness, but they will never be able to undo what has been done, because betrayal is not just an event, it is a wound. And wounds, even when they heal, leave scars that never truly fade. Betrayal is more than a single act. It is a reflection of character, a mark upon the soul of the betrayer that speaks volumes about who they truly are. When a person betrays a good soul, they are not simply harming another, they are degrading themselves. They are making a choice that alters their moral compass, stepping away from integrity and into the shadows of deceit. It is a slow erosion of character, a self-inflicted wound that deepens over time, whether the betrayer acknowledges it or not. At first, betrayal may seem like a simple decision, a moment of weakness, or a means to an end. The betrayer might convince themselves that their actions are justified, that they had no choice, that circumstances forced their hand, or that their own gain was worth the sacrifice of another's trust. But what they fail to realize is that betrayal is not just about breaking someone else's heart. It is about corrupting their own soul. It is a stain that lingers, a choice that reshapes their very identity. The decay of morality does not happen instantly. It begins subtly in small compromises. A lie here, a broken promise there. A whisper in the mind saying it's not that bad. No one will know, they will forgive me. But the more one betrays, the easier it becomes. Soon, dishonesty replaces truth, and selfishness overshadows compassion. The betrayer begins to lose sight of who they once were, drowning in a cycle of deception that they themselves have created. But what they often fail to anticipate is the cost, the internal weight of their actions. Betraying a good soul is not like deceiving an enemy or manipulating someone indifferent. It is destroying something pure, something undeserving of harm. And while the good soul may suffer, may cry, may struggle with the pain of being wronged, they will eventually heal. Their goodness will remain intact, even if bruised. But the betrayer, they are left with the knowledge of their own wrongdoing, the undeniable truth that they were given something precious and they destroyed it. No amount of justification can erase that reality. The world may not always hold the betrayer accountable, but their own conscience will. There will be moments of silence where their mind replays the choices they made, where their heart remembers the trust they shattered, and over time, they will come to understand that betrayal is not just an act. It is a defining moment, a moment that reveals who they are at their core, a moment that once chosen cannot be undone. A good soul once betrayed may learn to protect themselves better, to be more cautious with their trust. But the betrayer? They walk a different path, one filled with the weight of their own choices, the slow decay of their own honor. For while the world may forget, the soul never does. And the true price of betrayal is not just the loss of another's trust. It is the loss of one's own integrity, a burden that no amount of time can erase. No matter how far one runs, no matter how much they try to silence it, the voice of conscience is inescapable. Betrayal does not simply disappear into the past. It lingers in the mind of the betrayer, weaving itself into their thoughts, their emotions, their very sense of self. It is not an external punishment that one can evade. It is an internal reckoning, one that follows them in moments of silence, in the dead of night, in the stillness where no distractions exist. The whispers of conscience do not shout, nor do they demand immediate attention. They creep in slowly, growing louder over time, reminding the betrayer of the choice they made and the consequences that followed. At first, the betrayer may attempt to justify their actions. They may say, "It was necessary, I had no other option." They will move on. But the truth is unrelenting. It does not bend to excuses, nor does it disappear with time. It settles into the depths of the mind, revealing itself when least expected. A familiar place, a forgotten scent, a fleeting memory, any of these can trigger the reality of what was done. And when that moment arrives, when the betrayer is confronted by their own conscience, there is no escape. Conscience is not bound by physical distance or the passage of time. One can leave behind a person they betrayed, can change their environment, can pretend as if nothing ever happened. But the mind does not forget, and the heart does not let go so easily. In the quiet moments, in the absence of noise and distraction, the truth resurfaces. It is a weight that no external force can lift, a burden carried within the soul. Some may try to suppress this guilt through avoidance, keeping themselves constantly occupied, drowning their thoughts in distractions, convincing themselves that their actions were insignificant. But no matter how much one tries to ignore it, the mind finds a way to bring it back. It may start as a faint whisper, a subtle discomfort. Then it grows into restless nights, into a gnawing feeling of unease, into a realization that betraying a good soul is not something that can simply be erased. Others may attempt to rid themselves of guilt through apologies, hoping that seeking forgiveness will bring them peace. But while an apology may provide temporary relief, it does not undo the act itself. It does not erase the fact that trust was broken, that purity was wounded, that something rare was lost. And even if the betrayed person forgives, the conscience does not forget. The knowledge of what was done remains, lingering in the background, a constant reminder that choices have consequences, and some wounds never fully heal. Betrayal is never truly left behind. It is carried within, a shadow that follows the betrayer wherever they go. The whispers of conscience are not a punishment from the world. They are a reflection of truth. And truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way to the surface. Betrayal is not an isolated act. It is not a moment that exists in a vacuum affecting only two people, the betrayer and the betrayed. Instead, it is like a stone thrown into a still lake, sending ripples far beyond the point of impact. It does not merely damage a single relationship. It poisons everything it touches. The effects of betrayal spread, influencing not just the people directly involved, but also those who witness it, those who hear about it, and those who become wary of trust as a result. When a good soul is betrayed, the immediate pain is profound, but the damage does not end there. The betrayed individual carries that wound forward, often unconsciously, into their future relationships. They become more cautious, more skeptical. Where once they gave their trust freely, now they hesitate. Where once they saw the world with hope, now doubt lingers in the corners of their mind. The betrayal does not just hurt them in the moment. It reshapes how they interact with the world, how they perceive others, and how willing they are to open their heart again. But the effects do not stop with the betrayed. Those around them, family, friends, colleagues, also witness the consequences of deception. They see the pain it causes, the scars it leaves. They too become more cautious. They too learn to be wary. Betrayal does not just destroy one bond, it creates an environment where trust becomes fragile, where sincerity is questioned, where people begin to second-guess even those they once believed in. It fosters suspicion, making genuine connections harder to build and even harder to maintain. For the betrayer, the consequences are equally far-reaching. They may believe they have succeeded in the short term, that they have gained something by their deceit, power, advantage, or even personal satisfaction. But over time, they will find that betrayal does not end with a single act. It follows them. Their reputation begins to shift. People around them start to notice patterns, to recognize the lack of integrity. Trust, once lost, is difficult to regain. And even if others do not immediately hold them accountable, a pattern of betrayal eventually catches up with the betrayer. People talk. People remember. Even those who are not directly involved in the act of betrayal will learn of it, and when they do, their perception of the betrayer changes. Suddenly, that person is no longer someone to be trusted, no longer someone others can rely on. Their words hold less weight, their promises seem empty, and their relationships become strained. Because betrayal is not just a singular event, it is a stain on a person's character, one that lingers far beyond the initial act. And so, the ripple effect continues. One betrayal can spread distrust through families, friendships, workplaces, and entire communities. It creates wounds that take years to heal, and for some, the scars remain forever. This is the true danger of betrayal. It does not only harm one, it has the power to corrupt the trust of many, leaving behind a world that is just a little more broken than it was before. A good soul is a rare gift in a world that often leans toward self-interest. To find someone who gives without expecting anything in return, who trusts without hesitation, and who sees the best in others is not something to be taken for granted. A good soul is not just kind, it is sincere, unwavering in its loyalty and rich in compassion. It does not calculate its generosity, nor does it hold back love out of fear. It simply gives, believes, and nurtures. But when such a soul is betrayed, the tragedy is not just in the act itself. It is in the loss of something rare, something precious, that may never be the same again. Betraying a good soul is unlike betraying an ordinary person. A good soul does not anticipate betrayal because it does not operate from a place of deception. It does not play mind games, does not manipulate, and does not suspect others of ill intent without reason. It approaches life with an open heart, with the belief that goodness will be met with goodness in return. And when that trust is broken, it is not just the pain of betrayal that wounds. It is the realization that the purity of their belief in others was misplaced. A good soul, when betrayed, does not seek vengeance. It does not retaliate with the same cruelty it was shown. Instead, it retreats. It withdraws into itself, questioning whether kindness is truly valued in this world. It wonders if trust is nothing more than an illusion, if sincerity is a weakness rather than a strength. And in that moment, something within them changes. The warmth they once shared so freely becomes guarded. The light they shone so effortlessly begins to dim. The saddest consequence of betraying a good soul is not just the pain it causes in the moment, it is the loss of something truly irreplaceable. The world needs more good souls, yet betrayal teaches them to protect themselves, to be less open, to be more hesitant in giving their love and trust. And so, what was once a beacon of light slowly becomes a flickering flame, no longer as bright, no longer as fearless. The betrayal does not just affect one relationship, it affects the way a good soul sees the world. But here is where the greatest tragedy lies. A good soul, despite its wounds, will eventually heal. It will rebuild itself, though perhaps with more caution. It will learn from its pain, though it may love more carefully. But the one who betrayed them? They do not heal in the same way. They are left with the knowledge that they have destroyed something rare, something beautiful. They may move on, they may even forget for a time, but deep down, they will always know that they have lost something they can never get back. A good soul, once betrayed, will never be the same. It may forgive, but it will not forget. And in that loss, the world becomes just a little less kind, a little less trusting, and a little less full of light. The price of betraying a good soul is not just measured in broken trust or shattered relationships. It is measured in something far greater. The irreversible loss of something pure, something rare, something that, once wounded, may never fully return. A good soul is not easily found. It is the kind of person who loves without condition, who gives without expectation, who believes in others even when the world gives them every reason not to. They do not calculate their kindness or withhold their compassion. They exist as a reminder that goodness still thrives in humanity. But when such a soul is betrayed, the cost is far deeper than anyone anticipates. The one who commits the betrayal may think they have gained something, an advantage, an opportunity, a moment of power or self-satisfaction. But what they fail to realize is that their victory is an illusion. In hurting a good soul, they have not just harmed another person. They have diminished themselves. They have exchanged integrity for deceit, honor for selfishness, and sincerity for manipulation. And while they may walk away feeling triumphant, believing they have succeeded in their deception, time has a way of revealing the truth. The consequences of betrayal unfold slowly, like cracks forming in the foundation of a house. At first, they are barely noticeable. The betrayer may feel untouched, unaffected, even justified, but as time passes, the weight of their actions settles in. Their reputation begins to shift. Others start to see them differently, to question their sincerity, to recognize the pattern of broken trust they leave behind. One betrayal can be dismissed, but repeated betrayals become a mark upon a person's character, one that cannot be easily erased. But beyond the damage to their reputation, beyond the judgment of others, lies the most significant cost of all: the burden of knowing they have destroyed something they cannot replace. The trust of a good soul is not easily earned, and once lost, it does not return in its original form. Even if the betrayed forgives, the innocence of that trust is gone. There will always be a lingering doubt, a hesitation, a guardedness that was never there before, and the betrayer must live with the knowledge that they are the reason for that change. A good soul, once betrayed, may learn to protect itself better. It may grow wiser, more discerning, more cautious in its trust, but it will never be as open, as fearless, as giving as it once was. The betrayer, in their moment of selfishness, has not only hurt another person, they have taken something beautiful from the world itself. They have made it harder for goodness to thrive, for kindness to flow freely, for trust to be given without fear. And in the end, the greatest punishment for the betrayer is not what the world does to them, but what they must live with inside themselves. Because long after the betrayal is done, after the words are spoken and the damage is inflicted, one truth remains unshaken. You cannot betray a good soul and remain untouched by the weight of your own actions.